morning, everyone. Welcome to Dream Big Today. This is Monday, January the 20th, 2025. What a big day this is in the Bible reading, as well as what's going on in our country. But as I started reading and studying, and of course, Lori did such a great job yesterday. I hope that you go back and read or listen to her. Um, I wanted to kind of just end on or begin on what one of the things that she ended with yesterday. Um, in Genesis, let me go back to my scripture so I'll be exact. I mean, we began Genesis 41:17 today, but let's look at Genesis 41:15. Just like four little words. Pharaoh said, "I have a dream." And what does that make you think of? Here we are, Monday, January the 20th, Martin Luther King Day. What did he say? His famous speech, "I had a dream." I had a dream. And as we think about that, we're stepping into a new season with a new president. The old one is gone, the new one has come in, and let's talk about that just briefly. I just kind of did a run over real quick on Martin Luther King's speech from that day. And he said, "I say to you today, my friends, so even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It's a dream deeply rooted in the American dream." And so if we take that with today, as we watch the events unfold in Washington and across the world, look at Ephesians 5:15 through 17. And this is living in God's wisdom. And I'm going to read it from the Passion. "So be careful how you live, not being like those with no understanding, but live honorably with true wisdom. For we are living in evil times. Take full advantage of every day as you spend your life for His purposes. And don't live foolishly, for then you will have discernment to fully understand God's will." And then I want to also read Micah 6:8. "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you today? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God." Pharaoh had a dream. Martin Luther King had a dream. 100% different in the two of them. But as we step into the reading today, we'll talk about uh, Joseph. But I just want to encourage you to step into this today and pray for our country. Look forward to things that will be good. Act justly. Don't have a knee-jerk reaction because you don't like one thing or two things. Let's be hopeful and pray every day, because we're supposed to pray for our leaders. We're supposed to pray for our community. We're supposed to pray. And God gives visions and dreams to anybody that can fulfill His mission. Let's jump into this. And if you would, put your prayer request and your praise reports in the chat box so we can just join you in celebrating the things that God's doing in your life. In fact, I visited with a lady this weekend that came and told me we'd been praying for a cousin of hers that had a mass in his, I think it was in his lungs, and didn't know what they were going to do. But here, months later, when she talked to him again, he said, "You know what? It's shrinking. It's going away." But you know what? That is what our Father does. It's either an and suddenly moment or it's a gradual moment showing progression of the healing. And we'll take either one because we know we have a God that supernaturally works through us in all ways. And so, yes, Nancy said God spoke to Joseph in dreams. So let's talk about these dreams today. The great thing about this is we see in Pharaoh's dream is there's an interpretation. I can't even talk this morning, and a solution. And that's what I like. I mean, if I'm having a dream, I want to know what it means. But God uses people in unfortunate situations to do what he needs done. So Pharaoh tells his dream, and if you look in the beginning of chapter 41, is pretty much word for word as he repeats the dream he had to Joseph. But you know, going back to the last few verses before today, remember Joseph was still in prison. Joseph was dirty, stinky. He probably, I mean, he's in prison. And now he's been pulled out, given a shower, cleaned up, shaved, new clothes, smells good. And now here he is. Probably gave him something beyond water and a piece of toast to eat before he goes before Pharaoh. But Pharaoh, again, he repeats these dreams almost word for word. And this is like a representation showing how important this dream was. And so he talks about the cows and he talks about the the grain. There's 7 in each one of those. Joseph had been 2 years in prison. So see, if this was Debbie in prison, had been there 2 years, and then now they want something, I wouldn't be quite as receptive, probably. I would really have to be praying a lot about that because I'd be a little aggravated that now that they want something, they're gonna let me clean up and come in and get what they can get. See, I'm still working on those things. But he had told the dreams to the magicians, but nobody could tell him what they meant. Here now, Joseph responds. Remember, I would have been a little aggravated, but not Joseph. Oh, I want to welcome somebody real quick. Suzanne, I'm so glad to see you with me today. Thank you for joining. Okay, so now back to my reading. Okay, Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh to advance in what he is about to do. Now, Joseph, oh my goodness, he was bold, courageous, positive, and explicit and clear. It's all marks of those prophets called to reveal God's word. He didn't show any signs of being a little aggravated. He didn't show any signs of thinking, well, sure, you want me to tell you. I'm going to hold something back. He never did that. He told him what it meant. And then he's talking about the famine that's coming. 7 years. The healthy cows and 7 healthy heads of grain represent 7 years of prosperity. And then the thin cows and the thin heads of grain is 7 years of famine. So it says this will happen just as I described, for God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. So with this revelation comes responsibility. Only through the revelation of God can we be prepared for the future. When we follow him, we're not focused on the world, on what the world says. Just like back in the day of COVID, whenever we heard that there's not going to be any toilet paper, no paper towels, no this or that on the store shelf, did we panic or did we trust God? Did you go out and buy as many cases as you could? People did. I don't know about you, but I don't have room for all of that stuff to be stored up for just in case or what if days. So let's jump on down to 31. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having two similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God. He will soon make them happen. Joseph knew the matter was entirely in the hands of God. When you're experiencing something, do you know that it's in the hands of God, or do you feel like that you've got to do something? See, I'm a doer, and I've always felt like that I had to do something. I had to take care of it. I've got to be the one. Oh my goodness. I'm about to eliminate those days because I know that I can't do it. It's God. My job in the whole scheme of things is to get on my knees and pray, to encourage, uplift, and share scriptures, share the promises, read the Bible. I lost my place too. Oh, here we go. Okay. So God had a purpose for the dream, a purpose for the timing, a purpose for the famine, a purpose for Joseph being in jail, and a purpose for everything. Can you just sit down today and look back at your life to see what you can figure out, maybe in 10 years ago, what the purposes of all of that was, and where you are today? See, I can look back and think, oh wow, had I known what life is like now, back then I would have been a little bit afraid. But now that I'm there, I'm thinking, thank you, Lord, for taking me through those times and just letting me stack my resume, whether it was difficult or easy. But I just know that you were with me throughout all of that. And so he says in 33, therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land. What does that mean? That just implies that Pharaoh wasn't wise and intelligent. Since it's not you, you need to find somebody that can carry out all of this plan. I think that's awesome. And then he goes on to the solution. Have them gather all the food, store it away, and guard it. Gather, store away, and guard it. This was a call to action for Pharaoh. It was for the coming crisis that he didn't have any idea. Now, did those dreams scare him? I would suppose seeing scrawny cows eat fat cows would probably be a little uneasy for me, and they didn't get fat. They stayed like they were. But Joseph didn't interpret in hope of a job. It was unlikely that a prisoner would be chosen for this position. He's just giving what God said. So these suggestions, and this whole thing was so well received that Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man, so obviously filled of the Spirit of God? Now, this is the first time that the Spirit is mentioned to come upon a man like this. And so Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God's revealed this to you, nobody else is as intelligent and wise as you. After Joseph has said, you got to find somebody that, well, oh, it's you. You'll be in charge of everything. Only I, sitting on the throne, will have rank higher than yours. You're in charge of everything. Joseph, the slave, the prisoner, is in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Joseph had a testimony that he was faithful to God. So he's gone from the prison to the palace. We learn that the meaning of elevation is service. A true godly man thinks of duty, not of show. So see the fruits that you have because you're serving God. You're serving, and that's what people notice. They don't notice that you sit there in your royal robe and your signet ring and you got your staff beside you and you're just barking orders. That's yeah, anybody can do that. But whenever you take off that robe and take off that ring and you go start serving the poor, the lonely, just meeting somebody new, that's what Jesus wants us to do. So he's been put in charge. He even changed his name. Not only did he change his clothes, he changed his name. And his name, if you notice in the little fine print over at the end of this, if you've got the 1-year Bible, his name, brand new name, means God speaks and lives. What a testimony. If I was brought up to something, what would my name be changed to? Or would they just say, Debbie is good enough. You're a busy bee. Let's just leave it there. But how awesome would it be that I was an example of God speaking and living. So as predicted, if we go on down to 46, I think it's awesome that he's just 30 years old. That's still just a kid, but he's married and has children and all of that. And then during these years, when the land produced the bumper crops, what did he do? Just as he had given the instructions earlier, he gathered and he stored and he put it away. He finally stopped keeping records of it because there was so much. It was so abundant. God blessed it beyond anything that they could imagine, because they had the storage bins and it was too much to measure. They hadn't planned on so much. And so I'm going to jump to the very end of this today. I want you to read it today because it's so good. And as we see in chapter 42, the brothers come. They come to get some grain. The brothers, the same brothers that didn't like him because he was special. He had a robe that Dad gave him. He had everything. And he talked about his dreams and how he was going to be over him. See, they didn't like all that boasting that little brother did. But now here he is, and they didn't recognize him whenever they faced him face to face. And Joseph accused them of being spies. And I find it odd that even though he was like 17 whenever he was sold, and now he's just 30-ish, that they don't recognize any part of it. I feel like that probably that was a supernatural blindness that covered all of them, because you'd think at least somebody would recognize that he's got the same smile or the same dimple in his cheek when he smiles as everybody else in our family, but nobody noticed that. But Joseph puts them all in prison. Now, what I want to say about that is he put them all in prison for 3 days. Always pay attention to the 3 days. Remember, Jonah was in the belly of the whale, the belly of the fish for 3 days. Jesus was resurrected in 3 days. I love the 3-day stories. But God can and must sometimes use ways we think is harsh to call us to where he wants to be. Boy, we've been there. We must never resent it. Excuse me. Because it's the hardest of our hearts that demanded it. So Psalms 119:67 says, "Before I was afflicted, I went astray, but now I keep your word." The brothers are learning a lesson. May we learn a lesson before we have to be put in that whatever type of prison cell that is. Maybe we can just trip and learn a lesson today that we don't have to go any farther into the life lessons from God, because they're not going to be fun. But they will be a great teaching lesson. Now let's jump into Matthew 13:24-46. Jesus teaches in parables, and don't you just love this? Let me get my little Bible out here. So he tells another story that's a good follow-up to the parable of the soil. Now, the first three soils give lip service to Jesus, and the fourth gives life surrender. So in this parable, the kingdom is composed, I can't even talk again, to two groups: false professors and true disciples. So the kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed, which we'll see in verse 38, that this is the people of kingdom. And let's see, sowed good seed in his field, and the field is the world, which again, it states that in verse 38. But while his men were sleeping, the enemy came and sowed seeds among the wheat and went away. Now, sleeping was not being negligent. That was just a normal function. But this tells us that enemy can come into anywhere, sneak in, and plant something, do something that can't be seen. And he does that to all of us. That's why we have to pray up every day. In this time, the farmers, well, which that wouldn't necessarily be for them too, because people farm to this day, and the quality of their crops, is the outcome of that is going to be a financial reward. But if there is weeds in that, something that's so close to looking like wheat that you can't even pull it out, and that's what we see on down here, that you don't know whether it's the wheat or it's the weed because of the type it is. And I've got a name of it. Darnel. It usually grows in the same production zones as wheat. It looks just like it. They refer to it as false wheat. And it bears that close resemblance until the ears appear. Only then can they tell what's real or not. Now, can you tell what is a real Christian or a not real Christian? Can you tell whenever you're sitting at church that, oh, they are or they're not? Well, it's not always easy for us to see, and actually we shouldn't even consider that. We shouldn't try to judge somebody on whether or not they're a Christian or not. That's not for us to do. I've lost my place again. So let's jump on down to verse 29, and this is in ESV version. No, he said, lest in gathering weeds you'll root up the wheat along with them. So that's another reason why we're not the judge. Let them both grow together until the harvest, and that's an expression of time. At harvest, I'll tell the reapers, gather the weeds first, bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. Jesus personalizes this. So the order is, first remove the bad, then gather the good. God allows unbelievers to remain for a while. His harvest, the judgment of all people, is coming. So we have to be ready. Then we go on down to verse 31. The parable, another parable of the mustard seed and the leaven. So the kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, that a man sowed into his field. It was the smallest of all seeds, but it has grown. When it's grown, it's larger than all the gardening plants. Now, Jesus showed the that the kingdom has small beginnings, but will grow and produce great results. That mustard seed, if you were to give somebody that was just really good at growing stuff a mustard seed and said, here, and it's so tiny that you can't even see it, it's like maybe a piece of pepper, and you think, well, that's nothing, that's not even worth my time, that's not worth my effort. But small beginnings is what it's all about. It takes, this is fun fact, or maybe it's a fact-ish, because facts tend to change when you're Googling it. It takes 750 mustard seeds to make up a single gram. Therefore, 28 grams in an ounce. Therefore, it takes approximately 21,000 mustard seeds to weigh an ounce. So small beginnings. If you were to plant an ounce of mustard seeds, you'd probably cover your whole state, maybe. I don't know how much that would be. But for us, for me, what do I get out of that? Are we actively participating in the growth of the kingdom? Praying, serving, giving in your sphere of influence, just like this mustard seed that's just a minute little thing. If we go shake somebody's hand and get to know one person, that's small beginnings. You will develop a relationship with them, and then you continue on. The next person, what's the next step? One step at a time. Those small beginnings, soon you will have a lot of people that you have developed a relationship that you'll be able to talk to them about Jesus. My time is flying, y'all. Now, if you jump over to, and we'll go quick, to verse 36, this is where it is, Jesus explains the parable of the weeds. He leaves the crowds. Now, prior to this, he was in the middle of the crowds speaking of these parables, but he's left them. Now he's got the disciples all to himself, and he's sitting down with them, and he's explaining the meaning of all of this. I think that is so amazing. How awesome would it be to sit down with your teacher from church, your pastor or somebody? I mean, the church service is over, and now you get to go sit with him for a cup of coffee, and you just listen to what he has to say about what he taught. I just think that would be so awesome. Well, this is what Jesus has done. And so as he goes on to verse 37, he answered, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. So this implies the sowing began with his earthly ministry as he went out teaching. Same with you. The field is the world, and the good seed is the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. Now, you know what? There's been a few times, well, even probably yesterday, maybe even in my dreams, that there were seeds sown that wasn't good, healthy seeds. And I pray all of that stuff away. Anything when the devil sneaks in trying to plant something, I want to get my Roundup and just spray it all and kill it all before it even has a chance to germinate. And I think you need to get your holy Roundup also, and so you can be ready to kill those weeds before they even have a chance. But remember, we want to always not judge people. We want to invite them into our circle of influence. And so maybe they'll see the Jesus in you, and they'll want more of what you got, and they will change from how they have been living and learn what true friendly love is from a believer who loves Jesus. They also love you too. And I love y'all. And I'm so glad that you joined me today. And if you'll come back at noon, we're going to talk about Psalms 18. It's a good one today. And so you have a blessed day.